the negotiations with this CBA, they appeared to go seamlessly. There appears to be such harmony. That was at least from the outside. Was it the same on the inside?
I don't know if I'd put a word on it. I think when both sides express an interest in getting a deal done well in advance of any deadline, you're already in a different place than maybe you've been previously, right? In previous negotiations. I think, me, Marty, Gary, and Bill had a conversation, a year before we began. I think it was in Boston. We were both in town for some business meetings to sort of lay the groundwork. We still had a lot of work to do with the players, just the way things had worked out with Marty taking over at the top of 2023 as executive director. He tries to go out and see as many players as possible from March 15th to April 15th. But as you know, as we get closer to the playoffs, it's time to leave those guys alone and let them do their business. So it was maybe an informal 15, 20 minutes, if we were lucky, at dinner. And so the fall of 23 was really Marty's first opportunity. And we went wherever we could go, even in August, where guys were skating, to introduce himself to the players, lay out his vision to the players, and all the rest of it. And so you weren't getting anywhere in bargaining prep, right? In 23, 24, it just wasn't going to happen. And so, summer of 24, we had a conversation, the four of us, sort of an outline of what we may be both looking for. It was brief, but certain things were on the table, certain things were off. And that set up our conversations with the players of the fall of 25, right, which is another 2.5 months where Marty could really put his stamp on what he wanted to accomplish in this next round of bargaining, and then get feedback from the players, right? And that's it's a multi-month process when you have 32 teams and every team has a player rep and an alternate rep plus other players who would like to be involved in the process. We had expressed to Gary and Bill, we just wouldn't really be ready until the spring. And that's just with Four Nations in February, especially, that was another week and a half. And so it's, that process had to take place. At the same time, Bill has shared with me many times, as you head into the playoffs is not the ideal time for the league to be engaged in bargaining either. There's just a lot going on at that time of year. And so post Four Nations, we really spent the next 6 weeks preparing. And then it's not a big secret now, we really spent all of April, all of May, and I guess most of June, because we didn't sign the MOU until the morning of the draft, which was at the end of June on that Friday. And so, 3 months, is that good? Is that bad? I mean, you continue to move along in the process, and we never hit that point where talks broke off. We were able to continue over that time period.
One of the reasons I ask is I remember you being part of some of the acrimony that existed in previous discussions and in previous lockouts. And to this day, I think we're just all amazed that both sides can be this cordial.
Yeah, and look, you got to be fair. I mean, part of it is a function of what you're bargaining, right? I mean, 04, 05, I was a young player in the league, was just cutting my teeth, didn't have, had been in some meetings leading up to 04, 05, but was on a yo-yo between the American League and the NHL. And so I know the history of it, but was not a part of that in any way. But you're talking about salary cap or no salary cap, right? And with the potential of missing a year, which did happen, or a year and a half. And so that's a different battle than what we just went through, right? In 2012, the league was looking to move revenue from 57% that the players got of HRR to 50. And so you have a battle there on how you're going to get to that point, and it took as long as it took. And where we ended up, 2020 is its own negotiation based on COVID and everyone trying their best to get through an unprecedented scenario so that we all come out the other side, of which Gary and Don Fair deserve a ton of credit for, as they were able to do that and did it quicker than anybody probably would have anticipated. But, that was really the focus of that negotiation. And so what were we focused on here, right? And we weren't talking about changing the 50-50. We weren't talking about guaranteed contracts. I think any of us who've been involved in the game for the last 20 years can paint a picture where you can get through that negotiation in a couple months and prioritize what's important to the players from Gary and Bill's side, what's important to them. And we were able to do that and continue, onward over the course of 3 months and come to an agreement.
What were the top couple of topics or areas important to the players in the latest CBA?
It's a wide variety. I mean, the big things going their way, obviously, are the removal of payroll taxes, workers' comp, a dramatic increase in the playoff fund, which is completely off share. There were smaller things within contracting that I'm sure you guys have seen, the increase in the minimum, and some smaller things that, the paper loans where, again, it doesn't affect a lot of guys, but 2 players last year lost both $90,000, $100,000 because they were on a constant yo-yo from the NHL to the American League, so the club could accrue cap space for whatever reason. The club, who were bona fide NHL players, things in there. The schedule, obviously, going to 84 games, the shortening of the preseason. You don't have 100% agreement, right? You talk to the players and try to figure out the best path forward. By the time I was done with it, and that was a multi-year process, really, of talking to the guys and seeing where they were. Obviously, there's a lot of advantages to go into what's essentially an 11-day training camp. It's 13 days, with the first day is a reporting day, and they'll get a day off in there. Going to an 11-day camp with a max of 2 games for anybody who's played over 100 NHL games, and then getting right into it, that offsets, the 84 games. The extra 2 games to go there. We'll hopefully have a little more space in the schedule. Physically, there's going to be injuries in this game if there's 55 games or 84 games. We've seen it already in preseason, broken bones, and you got a frozen rubber disc flying around out there at 100 miles an hour. Bad stuff's going to happen. We all know that. I'm just as concerned about our guys mentally over the course of the season, and when they see that schedule and just getting up and down, travel and back-to-backs. Physically, I feel they're all more than capable of playing 20 minutes for 84. We see them play 115 games or 110 games, depending on how long their playoff runs go. We have plenty of players who go to the World Championships and play more games, up to 10 or 11. The mental piece of this is what I was really concerned about. So that was something to juggle. Obviously, the players got more in order to go to 84 games with the shorter camp and the elimination of fitness testing and some other things to assist with their travel. So those are some of the big ones. I'm sure I'm forgetting it. I don't have a list in front of me of other areas that were identified, but having those things come off the player's share, on a going forward basis, were identified early and extremely important.
You forgot the dress code. Come on, Ron. The dress code. I've had more people talk about the dress code than anything else.
Well, John, there you go. You nailed it. I figured since everyone, when the MOU came out, read dress code, and that was the focus of like 96% of the articles that went out there, that I don't need to talk about it anymore. Get on your the plane afterwards, and you're getting a little response, and our PR team will send us what's out there, and you're kind of exhausted and don't care. And after 48 hours, I think I had got just from friends out there at some point, 55 text messages about the dress code, and 0 about anything of it, any importance as far as not any importance, but maybe more important things within the agreement. So I didn't feel I needed to touch on it, but that certainly has got plenty of play.
Wow.
For whatever reason, and it's continued even through the preseason with. I don't get it, is why it's such a concern out there, but I guess.
So, but if you were playing, you'd wear a suit to the game, wouldn't you still?
I would not. I 100% would not. I guess I could envision a time, but I would love to roll out of bed and just throw a pair of jeans and whatever top on is appropriate for the weather and get myself down to the building, at the time and get ready. In Toronto, just because of traffic and the way the city was, occasionally I would stay downtown if you knew it could be. I lived in Etobicoke, which is obviously not very far, but depending on traffic, could take you an hour plus if you hit it at the wrong time. And so I changed my nap schedule and everything when I was in Toronto at home, just to roll out of bed at 3, throw something on, and shoot down to the arena, as quick as possible, and I'd be there and go, have my snack there and everything else. So I rolled out of bed and put a suit on. Those were the rules. That was the deal, and whatever. I put a tie around my neck. I would get there early enough that I never tied it. The camera wasn't even set for me to walk in, so I wore it like Berkey used to wear it. I just never, I could have been wearing a bathing suit And flip flops for the entirety of 2 years, I don't think anybody would have known when I went to a home game. And then same thing getting out of there. If you want to go and have a beer or meet some friends for dinner, and you're coming off of a hockey game, you just took a hot shower, you put a suit on, you end up sweating through the thing before you've been in the parking lot at Scotiabank. I mean, sure. It's a sauna down there, and you get in the car, you're going to AC. So anyway, look, the guys have the option to wear what they want to wear. If they want to still wear a suit, they can still wear a suit, right? I mean, we're not taking anybody's ability to wear a suit. I'm sure plenty of guys will wear suits that maybe are the same they always wore, flashy or whatever. What we've done is, and what the players have asked for, which is give them the ability to wear some different things. On the plane, they don't have to worry about wearing a suit. I mean, this was always one of the great ones in my career. You get on the plane for a 5-hour flight to LA, and the club makes you wear a suit and tie to it, of which you see the same person at the FBO that you've always seen. You get on it, you take the entire suit off, hang it up, put it up, it gets ruined in the carry-on or whatever. Some clubs have better planes where you can hang them. 5.5 hours later, everybody's hair is mangled, but they put a suit and tie on, so they look great as they roll through the lobby at whatever hotel you got to, right, and then take it off again. It's just one of these things that it was how it was, but it won't be that way going forward.
What's the baseline for it? You said jeans.
The language is pretty simple. The players will be required to dress in a manner consistent with contemporary fashion norms. Now, Darren, I don't know what that means. I assume you don't know what that means.
Nope.
I feel it gives the guys. I didn't come up with that line.
That sounds like a lawyer to me, Ron.
Well, that's a correct guess. And so that gives the players, I think, more than enough freedom to go and do what they want to do.